Being an indie app developer requires balancing a lot of information and wearing a lot of hats. Not only are we designers and developers, but we're also marketing, customer support, finance, strategy, and everything else you can think of. To do all this stuff well, you really need good infrastructure. Now, as developers, when you hear the word infrastructure, you might be thinking of things like frameworks, databases, cloud storage, and more. Those kinds of things are technical infrastructure. While technical infrastructure is important, it's only part of the much broader infrastructure you need to be an indie app developer. In this video, I'm going to talk about the various types of infrastructure I use as an indie app developer, ranging from the technical to the non-technical. So I have four main areas of infrastructure. I have business, product, marketing, and personal. For each one of these areas, I break them down into the things I need and the things I need to do. The things I need are the tools required for doing specific parts of the job. For example, I need a computer to write code, I need a spreadsheet to be able to manage finances, and I need a camera to be able to record these YouTube videos. Now, the things I need to do are much more about process. For example, I have a work schedule that sets certain boundaries for when I should and shouldn't be doing different types of work. For example, Fridays are admin days, and that's when I review finances and update the various spreadsheets I have. An important thing to note here is you have to combine a tool with a process. If you just have a bunch of tools but no process, things are going to fall apart very, very quickly. So whatever tools I use, I try and pair them with specific processes so that I'm actually doing things that I need to do. The first area is business, and this is all the general stuff I need to be able to run and maintain the business. So let's talk about the things I need. First, I need a computer. My computer is a 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro. I prefer a laptop because even though I'm at the desk a lot and I do have it docked, I do like to move around our place here. So sometimes I like to sit on the couch. Sometimes I like to sit at the kitchen counter, and we travel too. So that way I can always bring the laptop with me if needed. Next is a business bank account. This is something where if you are starting a business, you need to have a separate bank account for your business finances. You do not want to be mixing that stuff together with your personal bank account. And there's tons of different business bank accounts you can get from different banks. They all kind of suck, but you just kind of pick one with the lowest fees you can find in your area and that kind of stuff. I also need accounting software. I actually just use a spreadsheet for this, but you can use things like QuickBooks or Xero. I think there's probably other ones now too, but I personally prefer to do all of this with a spreadsheet. Then you have communication software. So this is things like email and chat. So I use Hey for all of my email. I have used Google Workplace before for most of the time. I did switch over to Hey. I used it when it first came out and then moved away and then now back. I find that for the way I prefer to do email, where I can put things aside, I can set little reminders, and all the little features that they have just seem to click with my brain and how it works. And I also find that doing a lot of customer support, I don't need different customer support software. I can just use Hey and the various features that it has to be able to do that. So it actually does save me money in that way. And for chat, I do use Slack. Obviously, I'm a team of one, so I'm talking with other people who aren't like part of my team in business, but it is a nice way to kind of keep in touch with people during the workday. The next thing I use is Office software, and Notion is probably the most used tool here when it comes to Office software because so much stuff is centralized there. But the things that don't fit into Notion, that's more like cloud storage or mostly spreadsheets, to be honest with you. I do have a bunch of spreadsheets I use for various things. Now let's talk about the things I do as part of my business infrastructure. The first thing I did was to set up a legal entity for the business. This was way back in 2015. The company name is actually Astrio LLC, not Sofa. Sofa is just the product of that company. But it's important to have that legal protection and separation from me personally and have that as a business entity. So it's not really something I do. I already did it, but it's an important thing to mention. Next thing I do is I manage my business books on a regular basis. So every Friday is an admin day, and this is time when I review all the financials for the business overall. So from Sofa, from the templates I sell, from YouTube, I update the various spreadsheets that I have to do that. But again, that is recurring time that I do every single week. If I let that go for a couple months or wait till the end of the year, it's just adding unnecessary stress. So I just kind of build that into my workflow. I set a work schedule. I've talked about this in a previous video, but I'm still honing what that schedule is. But I have an initial schedule of this is time during the week when I am working on Sofa and developing and designing. I have time dedicated to YouTube where I'm doing stuff like this. And then I have admin time where I'm maintaining the business, I'm doing the financial stuff and keeping all that stuff tidy. And keeping a work schedule is important for me because otherwise, with too much freedom, it can be very easy to spend maybe too much time developing code and then I let other parts of the business suffer, or I'm spending too much time on YouTube videos and the product is suffering, or vice versa, that kind of thing. I like the structure and I personally need the structure to be able to make sure that I'm doing things on a consistent basis, and so I'm making progress in each part of the business. So the next area is the product infrastructure. And this is where I mostly spend time on Sofa, where I design and develop Sofa, and then the various templates that I do create and sell. So let's talk about the things I need. First, I need design software. I have committed this year specifically to Figma. I've used Sketch for a really long time and I really love Sketch. I was kind of paying for both for a while and there's just too much overlap. So for this next year, I'm going to be going fully in on Figma and we'll see how that goes. I may switch back, but so far so good. Figma is really great and really easy to share with other people if I need to. The community stuff is really great. So there's a lot to like about Figma, but I do miss parts of Sketch. The next stuff is around development software, and this is kind of a wider array of things. So there's specific tools that I need to use. So there is Xcode, and that's what I use to write code for Sofa specifically. There's VS Code, which I use to do web development specifically for the Sofa website. And then also sometimes I need to look at JSON files and various things, and VS Code is really great to be able to just open all that stuff in. I use GitHub for all of my code repositories, and I use Tower to interact with all those code repositories. Tower is a Git client for the Mac, and it's something I've been using for a couple of years, and I just really like it. My background is design, so I prefer visual interfaces over the terminal. I know a lot of developers love using Git via the terminal. I don't. I can if I have to, but I prefer to use a nice client, and Tower is awesome. The next group of things under development is SDKs and frameworks. I use RevenueCat for managing subscriptions within Sofa. So anytime that you're in Sofa and you're, say, looking at the plans that you want to subscribe to, or say you're changing one of those things, RevenueCat is making all that stuff possible and making it very easy. And it's talking directly to Apple's StoreKit API. RevenueCat is really good. You have good analytics with it, and I'm very, very happy that I invested and started using RevenueCat. I also use CloudKit and Core Data for really being the heart of the Sofa app. So basically any data that you add or save into Sofa is saved locally via Core Data. That's kind of like the database layer or the persistence layer. And then everything is synced via iCloud. So then when you add something to your phone, it shows up on your iPad or your Mac. And those two work together in a couple different ways, but that's really the heart of the Sofa app and how all that stuff works. Next is project management software. So at any given point, I can be working on a couple different releases at one time, whether I'm like actively developing one or planning for future ones. I can be maybe creating a new template that I'm going to be putting on the store to sell. And Notion is just the best at all this stuff. The reason I really love Notion is you can probably find tools that are better at specific parts of Notion than what Notion can actually do. The reason I love it so much is because I don't have to jump around to different apps. I love the all-in-one thing. As you can see, Sofa is very much like that as well. It's an all-in-one thing. The fewer times I need to context switch and jump to different apps, the better. So Notion really has become a very, very core part of how I work every single day. Next is customer support software. So I have a product and I need to support people who are using that product. Sometimes that can be simple questions that they have. Sometimes it's problems that they have. And I need to be able to communicate as easily and effectively with them as possible. There's actually three main things I use for this. I use email, which I spoke about earlier. Hey is really good. They have this workflow feature where you can essentially have tickets come in, have emails come in, and they kind of go into this workflow and you can choose if something is in progress or solved and that kind of stuff. To me, that is enough for what I need at this point in time for the volume that I get. Next is Discord, and Discord is a nice way that Discord is really for the people who are the heavy users and the nerdy people who really like Sofa, and they're kind of in the Discord, and there's not tons of activity in there, but people will ask questions, they'll give feedback, all types of stuff. So it's a more like real-time way if you want to get support, and that's something I do provide. And the last thing is the website, and this is probably one of the best things is writing support documentation. So I have a support page on the Sofa website that I try and keep updated with the latest and greatest info. For the basic things, I can point people to articles there, and honestly, pretty frequently I'll get questions via email, and then I'm able to easily share a link to a support page instead of answering the question for the 100th time. So let's talk about the things I do for my product infrastructure. First is I make plans and I prioritize. As I mentioned earlier, I can be working on multiple releases at one time, and usually that's I'm writing actual code for a specific release, but I'm thinking about future releases. And sometimes future releases depend on the thing I'm working on now. So I need to kind of layer those things in multiple steps over time. And I make time to do this. I make time to plan, to think, to go through the feedback that I get from people about the types of features that they're looking for. And you can see that things that I'm talking about in YouTube videos or things that I'm showing in Discord as I'm working on it, a lot of that stuff comes from feedback that I get, that people are asking for specific features, and it's me responding to that stuff, not in always an immediate way, but in a way where I'm trying to think about it and digest it and say, okay, this person's asking for this specific thing. How would I implement this within Sofa, and how would this make sense? And this is where Notion is amazing for this. So I have a database called the Pile, and this is where I'm putting in the things I'm going to work on, or maybe I'm going to work on. And I kind of set them with different tags to be able to say, all right, here's what I'm working on right now. Here's the things that I think are going to be next. And here's things that are in the future. I may or may not do them, but I do want to still capture them. And that pile that I've created within Notion is just so nice because it's something that I revisit on a recurring basis to make sure that I'm still moving the product forward in a healthy way. Next thing I do is I stick to my work schedule. The way I have it set now is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is mostly focused on Sofa, or fully focused on Sofa and writing code. Thursday is a YouTube day, and that's where I am either kind of writing a script or writing an outline, and I'm setting up and I'm filming and editing, hopefully all within one day. And then Friday is an admin day. So this is where I do certain admin work, and then any overflow stuff that came out from the previous days, I will try and handle that stuff on Fridays. And working for myself, it's very easy to just keep working, right? To say, I'm going to keep going until, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to work on Saturdays and Sundays. But I've actually learned over the years that building in some constraints here is actually beneficial for the work. I used to equate time at the keyboard as time working, which is 100% not true. And I think it's important to have time away from work because your brain is still working on things and you're thinking about stuff, and having those breaks, I think when you come back to the work, so I know that, okay, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm gonna be mostly writing code, and then I'm gonna have this few days where I'm not writing code. I'm still thinking about stuff, I'm still kind of working on stuff in the background, but then when I come back to it on Monday, I know that, okay, I have the next 3 days to really hit things hard. Before I went full time, I instituted those constraints as well. So I would do work nights on Monday nights and Wednesday nights after work. And those were specifically focused on designing and developing Sofa. I was able to do that over 8 years and make pretty good progress. Another thing I do is I keep a work log. And I started doing this maybe like a year or two ago. The thing I was struggling with at the time was I would be maybe working on something complicated, and then I wasn't able to work on that for maybe a week or a few weeks. So by the time I came back to it, there was a lot of relearning what I was actually doing. So I started to just kind of keep notes for, hey, here's what I worked on during this time. That way I was able to pick back up and jump back into the work a lot faster. This habit really stuck, and I actually do this all the time now for various things that I'm working on. The last thing here is doing customer support. Like I mentioned before, people will reach out at various times, whether that's via email or Discord, with either questions or different problems. I need to be there and I need to be available to be able to respond to that, to try and help them as best as I can. So I give people a clear place to reach out. So within the app, I link to the Sofa support page on the website, which has all the questions and stuff like that. I let people email me through the app. So I'm trying to give different ways and to show people that, hey, I'm here to help you if you need help. But I'm also trying to build in as much self-service support as possible, and that's where those support pages really come in handy. If someone can go to the support page and get the answer they need without having to send me an email, without having to kind of struggle through things, that's great. So the next area is marketing infrastructure. I work hard on Sofa and the various templates that I make, and I want people to know about it. So marketing is an important part of all this stuff. So let's talk about the things I need. Number one is I need a website. Pretty easy, pretty simple. I actually see a lot of apps that don't have websites, and I just think it's an oversight. You need a website. Setting up a website is insanely easy these days. You do not have to hand code everything. You can if you want, but you really don't have to. There's so many off-the-shelf things you can grab here. I use both. So for the Sofa website, I use the Astro.js framework for this. I'm really enjoying it. It gives me tons of control, and setting things up with various markdown files to be able to generate content is excellent. For my personal site where I sell templates, I use Squarespace for that because I'm kind of picking and choosing where I want to spend the heavy dev time and where I don't, where I want someone else to just kind of solve it for me. But the Sofa website is an area where I want to have more fine-tuned control over the various parts of things. I know that it's going to take more time and work to, say, add a new page or add new features to that or update information, but that's one of the trade-offs I'm willing to make. So you kind of have to think about how much time do you want to invest in the website side of things, and is that worth it for what you're trying to do? The next thing is my YouTube channel. And I view this as a marketing channel for Sofa, for the templates I sell, for the work that I do, and for myself. If you think there's a lot of different ways where you can promote and share the work that you're doing. You can write blog posts, you can start a podcast, you can do videos, you can tweet, you can use Instagram, all these different things. It's more about finding the thing that suits your style and the thing that you enjoy. I've tried the blogging thing in the past, and writing is not something that I love to do. I can do it when I need to. I do a lot of writing for different things, but I actually really like making videos, and I like the process of it. I like cameras, and I like learning how to set up lights and to create little scenes for what I'm going to be using and different things. And I feel like for my style, this is a better form of communication than writing a blog post or podcasting or something like that. It's definitely way more work than writing a blog post, but I think it's worth it. I personally watch a ton of YouTube, and I love video specifically. A lot of the development stuff that I learned over the years has come from video, from people making videos online. So I personally really love the format of video. And for YouTube, you need a camera. You can just use your phone. That's totally fine. There's so many different cameras you can use, but you just need one. You need a YouTube account. You need editing software. I personally use Final Cut. I've used other ones, but Final Cut is the one I like. The last thing I need is a newsletter. And this is kind of a newer thing for me, where I want a way where I can share chunks of work. So say someone doesn't want to keep up with these YouTube videos every single week, or I'm not posting on social media every single day and it's just like a little bit too much. I wanted a way to be able to update people on what I'm working on in a less frequent method, say once a month roughly. A newsletter is kind of a great way to do that because it's very slow, just goes to your email. And every month I'm planning to send updates for what I'm working on, whether that's stuff here on YouTube that I've done, progress that I've made with Sofa, things that I'm selling, and even just random stuff like, did I watch a good movie that I really enjoyed, or read a good book, or that kind of thing. That's a newer thing I'm doing, and I've tried a couple different tools for this. I kind of bounced around. I was using Substack a little bit, but now since I'm fully into Squarespace, I'm just going to use that going forward. If you're interested in signing up for that newsletter, there is a link in the description. Now, here's the things I do for marketing. The first is paid marketing. This is specifically for Sofa. So over the past year, maybe year and a half or so, I've done a good amount of paid marketing for Sofa to get it out there in front of people. Getting attention for stuff is probably the hardest and the most expensive thing with what we do. I have done some paid marketing for sponsoring podcasts, YouTube channels, and also during Fireball at one point. I've learned a lot doing that, and I've seen some very, very interesting results from it as well. Now, I am taking a little step back from the paid marketing stuff because I want to experiment more with putting that time and energy into the YouTube channel and into the newsletter to see if that can have similar results. But it's very likely I'll do paid marketing again in the future. So you may not think about how a YouTube video is really made. You just kind of watch it. I hadn't really thought about it before I started making them either. There can be a lot that goes into a video. Even short videos can take multiple hours to actually create. So the production behind the scenes. But again, this is where that work schedule that I talked about is really important because I have time dedicated to doing YouTube. So this gives me the time to write outlines or write scripts depending on the type of video that I'm doing. It gives me time to film, to set up and to do all this stuff. Then I need to edit, write descriptions, create thumbnails, which is a whole other world that I am trying to learn and understand. But the most important thing is consistency here and doing this every week. So I've kind of set a schedule where my publishing schedule is now Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. So I need to have everything done and ready to go for that time. And then the last thing is the newsletter. So again, this is a monthly thing. So I'm basically aggregating and collecting what I worked on for the previous month, putting that together inside of a newsletter and sending it off to people. I should also note that all of this is happening inside of Notion. All right, so now we're on to the last, but maybe the most important part of the infrastructure, the most interesting part, which is the personal infrastructure. So I really think it's so important to prioritize and to understand and think about deeply your personal infrastructure and how it fits in with all these other things. Because if you're strong in all those other areas, but your personal side is taking a big hit, it's going to be rough. So the things I need for my personal infrastructure are pretty simple. I need good health, good finances, good relationships, and fun hobbies. Now let's talk about the things I do for my personal infrastructure. So when it comes to health, obviously the easy one is exercising and eating right, but also one of the hardest things to do. This is probably the area that I suck at the most and the one that I've struggled with the most over time. So I go through periods where, I have consistent exercise schedules and I am eating pretty well, but then something will derail it. Maybe I'm really tired or maybe we travel and I kind of get off schedule, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that within my new working structure, I'm able to kind of make better time and stick to that time to keep that stuff in better shape. So when it comes to finances, the thing that I found the most valuable is learning how to create and stick to a budget. It's something that it's so simple when you really think about it. It's like, oh yeah, create a budget, stick to the budget. I was never really taught how to do that. They didn't teach us that in school. And it's something I feel like I learned way too late in life. But once I learned it, it was just kind of amazing and very, very eye-opening. And here's a little plug. I do have a template that I made. It's a spreadsheet, so either Apple Numbers or Google Sheets that can help you with your budget and understanding where your money goes and how it's all structured. So I'll link to that in the description, but I definitely recommend checking that out. So creating a budget, sticking to the budget, and making sure that we're putting money aside for savings is it's really so important for every single week that we're here. Next thing is around relationships. So that's spending good quality time with my wife, my family, friends, and really trying to be present when you're there too. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure many people are of you kind of sit on the couch, put the TV on, and then you just look at your phone for a while. And also staying in touch with the people that I care about in my life. And that's something that I've struggled with to do, not because I don't want to, but I kind of forget and put that stuff off. I am experimenting with some new ways to make that a little bit easier for myself and to make sure that I actually stick to it. It's very easy for months to go by without, just sending someone a text and just checking in to see how they're doing. So it's something I definitely want to get better at and I'm going to be focusing on in the future. I can get very lost in my work and, days go by, weeks go by where I'm just kind of in it and I kind of ignore and don't really pay attention to the things around me. It's something that I'm trying to break myself out of. And, the constraints that I talked about in the other, the work schedule, right? So making sure that I do put those work schedule constraints in there, it impacts these things down the line. And that's why this infrastructure I'm talking about, it's, there's these different areas of infrastructure, but the overall infrastructure, they're all kind of interacting with each other and bumping into each other and different things. So it is important to think about it in this more holistic way. Now, hobbies for me, it's something that I want something that I can be very into that isn't work, that doesn't feel like work, that doesn't turn into work. And photography is that for me. It's something that's come in and out of my life a couple times, but in 2020, it just really stuck. And I really fell in love with it. And it's something that I love doing, I enjoy doing. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it. I'm trying to get very good at it, but I'm also not trying to turn it into something. I'm not trying to turn it into a business. I'm not trying to make money from it. It sounds like a small distinction, but it's actually really nice because it takes the pressure off. There's no need to be really good with it. I can just enjoy it and have fun with it and bring my camera everywhere. I like that very much, and I'm not trying to turn it into anything bigger than that. It's just something that I enjoy. And even though on my website I do publish pictures that I've taken, but I see that as more as a way for me to hone the craft and to get better at it, because it forces me to edit photos, to choose photos, to think about which photos are maybe better than others. And it puts it out there for people to give feedback to as well. So again, it's maybe like a serious hobby, I guess, but it's something that I enjoy quite a bit. So that is my overall infrastructure from the 4 different areas and the kind of things I need for each of those areas and the things I do within each of those areas. Hopefully this was interesting. I feel like this video is probably going to be like 2 hours long. I've been recording for a while now. If you want me to go deeper into any one of these specific areas or specific things or specific tools, just let me know. You can put a comment, and I'd love to hear from you. But thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.